In Brazil, President Lula da Silva and Jair Bolsonaro carried out political activities in the state of Sao Paulo to gather support for the October presidential elections. In Japan, the ruling Conservative Party retains a majority in the Senate after Sunday's elections. And in South Africa, two shootings, one in Johannesburg Soweto Township and another in the country's east, left 18 people dead and several injured. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Brazilian president and presidential pre-candidate for re-election, Jair Bolsonaro participated this Saturday in a new March for Jesus in the metropolitan region of Sao Paulo. In this edition, the so-called March for Jesus was attended by the vice presidential pre-candidate Senator Simon Tebet. Besides them, the current governor of Sao Paulo, Rodrigo Garcia, a pre-candidate for re-election, was also present. The March for Jesus is an evangelical event led by the church Renascer en Quixo. It celebrates its 30th anniversary in 2022 and consists of a walk with concerts by gospel singers and preaching by evangelical pastors. Meanwhile, former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva led a mass rally in defense of democracy, together with former Governor of Sao Paulo, Geraldo Alckmin, and the pre-candidate for the Workers' Party for the government of Sao Paulo, Fernando Haddad. The event vindicated the defense of democracy, the fight against hunger, unemployment, and lack of housing. The rally took place in the municipality of Diadema in Sao Paulo, with the presence of several sectors of civil society and representatives of social and political movements, mainly those who are part of the Vamos Junto por Brasil movement. And due to changes in electoral law, Brazil now has the highest number of Afro-Brazilian city councillors in its history, but racist politicians aligned with President Bolsonaro are doing everything they can to remove them from office. From Brazil, our correspondent Brian Mears reports.
In 2020, the Brazilian Supreme Court ruled that political parties must divide campaign funds equally with black candidates. This has led to a dramatic increase in black city councilors and mayors, but across the country, racist right-wing politicians have been fighting to remove them from office.
These mandates, which are being persecuted and threatened, were won legitimately by the power of the people, by people who believe in social transformation. So it is really sad to see that our political action is being restricted because this society, which is still racist, doesn't accept our presence.
Curitiba City Councilor Renato Freitas was arbitrarily arrested twice since taking office in 2021. Last month, he was impeached by the majority white city council for participating in a protest against racism that ended inside of a historically black church. However, a judge just ruled that the city council has violated due process and reinstated him to office.
The truth is always on the side of the oppressed. The truth is revolutionary, and I feel that in my case, the truth has been completely re-established.
The court ruling was a victory for the rule of law, but across Brazil, hundreds of Afro-Brazilian city councilors are facing similar arbitrary impeachment processes launched by allies of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Brian Mears, TeleSUR, Recife.
This last Friday in Cuba, workers and firemen at the Lidio Ramon Perez thermoelectric power plant placed in Holguin managed to control a fire that broke out in Unit 2 of the facility. According to local media, so far no death or injured people have been reported in the area of the accident. The general director of the power plant, Osmel Maturel, said that after the flames were extinguished, Block 1 could be active again for the subsequent synchronization to the national energy system. He explained that after 2 p.m. local time, a leak occurred in one of the boiler tubes while the turbine of Block 2 was rolling, and the high temperatures of the boiler had caused the fire, which did not last more than an hour, thanks to the immediate intervention of those responsible for this facility. On the occasion of the celebration of the 206th anniversary of Argentina's independence, President Alberto Fernandez called for unity to face the challenges ahead. During the ceremony, Fernando was accompanied by the head of the National Cabinet, Juan Mansur, the president of the Chamber of Deputies, Sergio Massa, and governor of the province, Osvaldo Jaldo. During the event, the president highlighted the existence of powerful groups in the country that seek to cause instability and emphasized the sustained growth of the country since the end of 2021. President Fernandez called on citizens to create spaces of unity and solidarity among Argentinians in order to face the challenges that will come up in the future.
I call on you to create more spaces for working in unity and solidarity. We are a diverse and plural society, but even in that diversity and in the awareness and respect for our differences, we cannot lose sight of the enormous shared space that shelters us. For an Argentinian, there can be nothing better than another Argentinian. No one is unnecessary in our country. No one can be above our homeland. Let us forge every day the unity that will take us forward.
President Fernandez stressed that despite attempts to divide the Argentinian people, the country's economy is showing positive signs.
In 2021, we achieved 10.3% growth. This year, we continue to grow at a rate of over 5%. We are exporting more jobs to Argentina. We have a trade surplus and record exports and imports. There are 120 structural works and over 5,000 public projects underway throughout the country. More than 1,200,000 people have found jobs.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, surveys revealed majority disapproval of the Supreme Court's ruling which overturned the Roe v. Wade decision, which had guaranteed a constitutional right to abortion for nearly 50 years. According to a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, 62% of respondents said they believe abortion should be legal in all or most cases. The majority of women, 47%, according to the polls, disapprove of the decision, while 21% said they agree. Opinion among men is more divided. 52% disapprove, while 47% approve the court's decision to strike down Roe gives states the authority to set their own abortion policies. These laws vary widely, and in several cases, state laws that prohibit or impose strict restrictions on access to abortion are currently facing legal challenges. Women's March returned to Washington, D.C. with hundreds protesting in favor of abortion rights in the U.S. Capitol. Demonstrations began 10 a.m. local time on Saturday. These actions follow the Supreme Court's recent announcement of its decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, a 1973 court case that had guaranteed the constitutional right to abortion for almost 50 years without excessive government restrictions. Demonstrators also staged a sit-in at risk of arrest to send a message to President Joe Biden to protect abortion rights. The U.S. government announced on Saturday visa restrictions for 28 Cuban officials as part of its policy of sanctions against the island, coupled with the tightening of the economic, commercial, and financial blockade. According to the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, these 28 employees of the Cuban government and the members of the Cuban Communist Party will be banned from entering U.S. territory. The head of Washington's diplomacy specified that this measure is aimed at those who, in his opinion, allowed or facilitated violent and unjust arrests, false trials, and prison sentences for those involved in the disturbances that occurred in July 2021. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez described the visa restrictions as an act of aggression, as he stated that they are individual sanctions based on absolutely unfounded accusations. The Russian Foreign Ministry assured that the majority of foreign ministers present at the G20 meeting in Bali, Indonesia, gave a clear signal on the unacceptability of Moscow's isolation. In a statement, Russia's diplomatic body said that during the meeting, the G20 countries discussed the negative consequences of unilateral Western sanctions, such as inflation caused in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, the stabilization of cross-border supply chains, and the complication of the geopolitical situation. The foreign ministers present also tried to find a single denominator to solve global socio-economic problems. The ministerial meeting was an important step in the run-up to the 17th edition of the summit to be held by the heads of the G20 member states on 15-16 November, also in Bali. In Japan, the ruling Conservative Party retained a majority in the Senate after Sunday's elections. According to exit polls, the Liberal Democratic Party and its ruling coalition partner Komeito could win more than a majority of the seats contested in Sunday's House of Councillors elections in the island nation. Some 125 seats were at stake in this election day of the upper house of the Japanese parliament, which consists of some 248 deputies and are elected in parallel for a 6-year term. If the ruling coalition were to win more than 82 seats, as projections suggest, it would have a free hand to declare a referendum on a change in Japan's constitution. At least 16 people have died and dozens were injured after flash floods at Indian Kashmir pilgrimage site. Emergency workers rescued thousands of pilgrims after flash floods triggered by sudden rain swept through their makeshift camps during an annual Hindu pilgrimage to an icy Himalayan cave in Indian-administered Kashmir, officials said Saturday. Authorities suspended the pilgrimage for 2 days as rain continued to lash the region. Officials also reported about 15,000 devotees were moved to safer locations and at least 5 dozen injured were administered first aid at base camp hospitals set up for the pilgrimage, which is undertaken by hundreds of thousands of Hindus from across India. The president of Costa Rica, Rodrigo Chavez, declared a state of national emergency to deal with the damage caused by Storm Bonnie and the rain associated to it. From the government house, the president addressed the country to inform that the entire territory is affected by landslides that have paralyzed many areas, especially on Route 32. According to the data provided by the head of state, there are 276 houses in need of urgent repair. The number of landslides caused by the storm has already exceeded 150 in the northern part of the country alone. The president insisted in his speech on national television that people cannot wait and that trade and industry need an urgent activation.
We have corrected our decision. Before, we had not made the declaration of emergency, and we are doing it today. You know what? We're doing it because we have to reopen those roads, repair the 152 landslides. It's not enough to wait for people. Trade and industry, they cannot wait any longer. They need to push this country, and that is why today I am going to sign, after Senator Natalia Diaz signs the emergency decree, to attend to this with the required urgency.
In Costa Rica, the Institute for Research and Education in Nutrition and Health announced on Friday the documentation of a new variant of COVID-19 currently active in the south of the country. According to the Institute's report, the documentation of the new variant yielded different results from others that have been reported internationally. For this reason, it has been assigned as a recombinant XAF variant. According to the classification system, the variant has also occurred in other countries such as Panama and the United States. Since February, cases of this subvariant have been detected in the southern part of the country, but in the last few weeks, cases have been reported in the provinces of Heredia, San Jose, and Limón. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In South Africa, 2 shootings, one in Johannesburg, Soweto Township, and another in the country's east, left 18 people dead and several injured. Police say they are investigating reports that a group of men arrived in a minibus taxi and opened fire on some of the patrons at the bar late Saturday night. Police were on Sunday morning removing bodies of the deceased and investigating what had led to the mass shooting. The number of cartridges found on the scene indicated it was a group of people who shot at the patrons, said Gauteng Province Police Commissioner. The shooting in the Soweto bar comes 2 weeks after 21 teenagers were found dead in a tavern in the city of East London. The cause of those deaths has not yet been announced by authorities, but the teens were not shot nor crushed in a stampede, according to officials.
The death toll is still standing at 14. 12 people have passed on here at the crime scene, and the other 2, they passed at Chris Baragwanath Hospital. One died on arrival and another one died an hour later. And we are still having 9 people who are sick, who are injured in the hospital, and 3 of those are in the critical condition. We wish them a speedy recovery. This incident, it happened around 12:30 in the morning. In this license, this is a licensed tavern, and it was still during the operational hours of the tavern.
In Sri Lanka, amidst popular and parliamentary pressure, the Prime Minister and the President agreed to resign from their posts. Demonstrators from different regions gathered in the capital Colombo to reject the government's handling of the biggest economic crisis the nation has faced since independence. The President, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, managed to leave the building surrounded by the protests to embark with his family on a military ship shortly after the Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe announced his resignation after the evacuation protesters seized the presidential residence and set fire to it. Parliament Speaker Mahinda Abeyewardena informed that the President will officially step down on July 13th to ensure a peaceful transition. Muslims around the world celebrated the Feast of Sacrifice, or Eid al-Adha, on Saturday, marking the end of the pilgrimage to Mecca. Eid al-Adha marks the end of the annual pilgrimage, or Hajj, and is celebrated in remembrance of Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his firstborn son to God as a test of his loyalty. According to tradition, Allah, seeing Abraham's righteousness, was merciful and stopped his hand before he could cut down his son, and in gratitude, Abraham sacrificed a lamb. Muslims all over the world 20 minutes after sunrise perform a special prayer, and then the head of each family is responsible for sacrificing an animal in commemoration of the passage in the Quran. In Tunisia, the President Kais Saied announced the withdrawal of the constitutional renewal project after the violent events of the last few weeks. The draft constitution to be put to a referendum on July 25th was withdrawn by the President on Saturday after he admitted formal errors in the text. The decision was taken after the opposition, led by the Islamist Renaissance Party, called the day before for a boycott of the referendum, and the President of the drafting committee of the new constitution assured that the text put to the public opinion was not the original one. On Friday, the President, who has ruled by decree since the end of March, when he suspended Parliament and dismissed the government, acknowledged criticism of the draft published in the official gazette and announced that it would be amended. Syria's permanent representative to the UN, Bassam al-Sabak, has blamed the United States, the United Kingdom, and France at the Security Council to politicize and manipulate humanitarian aid to his country. The diplomat assures that his country gives priority to all humanitarian issues and devotes a deep effort to them, with the aim of satisfying humanitarian needs of its people and relieve the suffering left by the war and terrorism that they fight without rest. The representative confirms that the policy that Western countries want to impose are wrong and continue to be deceitful and fraudulent. The Syrian diplomat regretted that the Security Council refuses to adopt the resolution process presented by Russia and thanked Moscow for its veto on Western project. In the Netherlands, farmers and ranchers protest government move to reduce nitrogen oxide emissions. The order to close the most polluting farms and holdings to reduce nitrogen emissions has led to a blockade of the country by those affected. The plan aims for the sector to reduce its nitrogen oxide emissions by 40% by 2030. In several areas, tractors and trucks were used to block supermarkets' distribution centers. Protesters say that aid and subsidies are not enough for many who are forced to stop farming. Dozens of farmers have been arrested, and an investigation is underway into why police shot a 16-year-old teenager, the son of a farmer, during one of the protests. Officers claim that he was driving a tractor at the police in a threatening manner. TeleSUR English continues to grow its signal now reaches Europe. You can order from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, versions will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are heard in other faraway nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and unfaithfulness to our audience. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.